Good evening, everyone. Some old friends in the room, and many of you friends to be, I hope. And something you may not know is that in addition to the humans that are in the room here, we're also broadcasting this evening presentation. And what's particularly noteworthy is that this is the very first live stream for Dharma Ocean. First live broadcast like this. So I want to say hi to all of those people through that lens who are watching and welcome you, friends to be. And thank you for joining us. And to thank all of you for being part of this first broadcast for Dharma Ocean. It's being made available streaming for free to people, which means that there are potentially people watching in far-flung parts of the world. So we're here to explore somatic meditation. And I wanted to begin this evening by highlighting some of the aspects of meditation that are unique to this approach. Meditating with the body. Well, how else might we meditate if we weren't meditating with our body? Well, that's an interesting thought. Reggie talks about how one of the things he noticed after about 3 decades of teaching meditation, 2+, maybe 3 decades, was that a lot of people approached meditation in a disembodied way. He called the experience floating heads. So it's like looking out at the room of meditators and seeing people's energy from the neck up, and no particular inhabiting of the full feeling sense of the body, everything that's going on from the neck down. And that one of the things he observed as a meditation teacher was that when people were meditating from the neck up, they actually didn't change that much. That the transformation process actually happens at the level of our felt sense of being. And of course, we know this if you've ever seen people who can talk a really good game. Maybe they've read a lot of books, heard a lot of talks, listened to a lot of recordings. They've got the vocabulary, but they haven't necessarily actually transformed to be congruent with that vocabulary. So we actually don't change just because we can understand things and say things differently. We change when we feel different, when our hearts are different, when people say, wow, you're so much softer, more available, more open, more present, more grounded, more rooted. There's more space here for me. That's what I noticed other people started to say when I started meditating with the body. You're softer and there's more space for me. Had nothing to do with all the hoo-ha one might be spieling, saying. So we're learning to meditate with our whole bodies, our whole felt sense. And actually what we're doing is a huge reversal from how we normally approach our body in our culture. Most of the time, we treat our body as if it's this lesser being that's kind of our slave. Hey body, I know you're tired, but that's what coffee's for. Hey body, I know you're tired, but we got a lot of stuff to do. Push, 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 push. So some sense of us that feels like we're in charge and our body is going to do what we want it to in service of our bigger objectives. But this type of training is to generate a reversal in our life, where actually our body becomes our teacher. We actually take our instructions from our body. We listen. One of the first sentences I heard Reggie offer when I went to one of the early Meditating with the Body programs was, "The body is the source of egoless wisdom." I love that sentence. We're always looking for wisdom, right? What's the wise thing to do here? What's the wise choice? And our body is that source of wisdom that's not being filtered through our control mechanisms, through our sense of wanting to fortify ourselves in this way or that way. It's actually reflecting back what's actually happening. So this is a very unusual style of meditation, a style of meditation in which our body is leading the way. And the practices that we learn are practices that help us tune deeply to the egoless wisdom of the body. We become a devotee of the egoless wisdom of the body, a deep listener, a receiver. So I want to continue to underscore what's unique about meditating with the body, and also answer this question, which I think is a really important question, which is why meditate at all? Why bother? I mean, here it is, it's a Friday night. And whether you're in this room or you're watching this broadcast, this is what you're doing on Friday night. You must have thought to yourself, why? Why am I doing this? I've thought to myself, why am I doing this? And I wanted to share with you why I'm doing it. And in that process, give you something to reflect on too. Why you might be doing this, and why you might really engage in a training like this quite wholeheartedly and really give yourself to it. So I'm going to tell you the 4 big reasons why on a Friday night I'm doing this. The number 1 reason is that I actually want to know what is going on with me. I actually want to know what's really happening inside of me, with me. Another way of saying that is I want to know what's true. And I want to know what's true in this moment, not the future moment, but what's actually true in this moment. And one thing about the body, it's always in the present. Have you noticed that? It's interesting. We travel into all kinds of, future fantasies and reflections and stuff. But our actual physical being is always in the present moment. That's really interesting. So if we want to be present, then tuning to our body is a guaranteed portal to the present moment. Guaranteed, because that's where our body is. It's right here. And our body knows what's true in some deep and interesting ways. And I'm gonna share an example from my recent experience, which is I recently have gone through a huge loss in my life. And that loss involved the death of Jasmine, our Cocker Spaniel, my partner's in my Cocker Spaniel, who was 17 years old. And was very, very close to Jazz. We spent 14 years together. She came with Julie when she was 3 years old. And it's probably the biggest loss related to a death I've ever experienced. And I went through a lot of grief and still have a lot of grief in relationship to this experience. The interesting part that I'm wanting to point to here and illustrate is that through this process, off and on, I felt at one point a kind of widow's hump on my back start to develop. I then felt this strange piercing knife in the left back of my body. What's going on? There's the grief that I think I'm aware of, that I'm crying, I'm going through this. But then there's also a deeper layer that my body is clearly communicating. And it's saying to me, please pay attention to me. You actually have more grief inside you about this, related to this, than you even know. Why else would the back of your shoulders start to be developing a strange hunch? I saw a photo of myself that was taken, and Julie, my partner, had her hand on my back, and there was like a hump there. And I was like, I developed a hump in a week. How did that happen? And I was talking to someone, and she said, do you know the story behind the widow's hump? And I said, no, what is it? It's that widows develop these humps because they had so many children that they had to care for, that they didn't have the time they needed to grieve as fully as the loss of their husband might have asked of them. And so they didn't have the time, so it was all repressed and kind of stuck in their back. And I saw this hump develop right during a time when I had to give several big public presentations, and I had a lot of work, and there were a lot of things I couldn't reschedule, and I had to just kind of do it. And there was the hump. So my body was holding and communicating a deeper truth about my experience than I was aware of. And as I've tuned to it and communicated with it and listened, mostly, so many things have been revealed about underlying fears of loss that this one event triggered, what other kinds of losses I might be bracing against. What I'm pointing to here is that this egoless wisdom of the body, it holds what we need. It holds the actual truth of our situation. So the first reason that I'm here with you tonight is that I want to know what's actually going on with me. Not the way I present necessarily what's happening, Tami, but what's actually going on at the deepest level of my soma, the felt sense the sensational level of our being. There's a woman named Candace Pert who recorded an audio program with Sounds True, and she called it, "Your body is your subconscious mind." And I remember when I first heard that, I thought, now that is an incredibly intriguing title. Our subconscious, our unconscious, that's where it is. That's where we actually find out what is not yet in our awareness, that's waiting for us to instruct us, to inform us, to make us whole. And it's interesting, other people can always see it, don't you know? When you see other people's bodies, like this person who presents, no, I'm not really angry about that. And you can tell they're like clenching their teeth and there's almost like foam coming out of their mouth. Do you know what I mean? And you think, really? Like we can see each other's stuff. We see it coming out of each other's body. We see it. We see each other's fear. We see it. And when we meditate with the body, we get to start seeing it from the inside out. We get to start feeling it and knowing it and actually being instructed by it. So that's the first reason. I want to know what's true at the deepest level of my experience in the present moment. The second reason that I'm deeply drawn and here on a Friday night to meditate with the body with all of you is that I'm interested in radical aliveness. We could say super aliveness, supreme aliveness, intense aliveness, glittery aliveness. And it's actually right here for all of us. It's actually right here. Our bodies are these intense fields of vibrating, alive energy. It's right here. We don't have to do a thing. We're not importing anything. It's actually a subtraction process. I recently heard Reggie describe the practice of somatic meditation as shedding. And I really liked that word, shedding. So we're shedding all the things we've put on top of our aliveness. That's already here. It's already present. And of course, it's so interesting, so much, the spiritual quest. We're looking for something. We're unfulfilled. This is missing. That's missing. This person's missing. This condition, situation, creative, something's missing. And when I really started to get it, that I was covering over something that was already here, it totally changed my view of what spirituality is about. I mean, there truly is nothing to get. There's just stuff to lose. Doesn't that sound simpler in a way? I mean, it's actually not that easy. And there's so much to lose. I mean, there's a lot to lose. And even after I've lost everything I thought I needed to lose, there's more to lose. So it's not that it's easy, but it's a radically different orientation. I'm here this weekend to lose something. So there's this already, always available aliveness of the soma. And we're looking to drop the armor, the construction, everything we've placed on top. And what we'll be working with throughout the meditating with the body practices is identifying tension in the body as one of the gateways to releasing the way that we shield ourselves from this available aliveness that's already here. Our tension is one of the big ways that we've covered it over. And it's really interesting because sometimes I think we think that tension just kind of happens to us, like, oh, there's tension in my neck, kind of like it came down with the rain or something. But what's really interesting is to start to see that we're actually generating the tension in some way. Might be subtle. We're generating that. In the situation of grieving that I described to you, I could see that I was generating that tension in my back because somewhere underneath I thought if I really felt how unbelievably sad I was, that it would overwhelm me. So I tensed up against it. This will be too much. Tension. Retraction, recoil. So we're recoiling from the intensity of our experience. Even just the intensity of the aliveness that I've described, that's always already here. Because that intense aliveness doesn't have a place for us to be quote unquote safe and in control and in charge and making sure that everything goes the way we want it to go and that we end up with money in our bank account and the partner we always wanted and et cetera, et cetera. Do you know what I mean? If you actually open to the intense aliveness, it is completely wild. It is totally wild. Untamable, undomesticatable. You know, so we want that wildness, but of course, most of us want it on our own terms. Like, I want that wildness, but I'm going to ride the wild horse my way, right? No, actually. It's so much more unpredictable than that. So the second reason that I'm so interested in meditating with the body is that I want that wild aliveness, even if it means, and it does mean, that I lose the control seat, the engineering seat, the mastermind seat. Got it? That's one of the things we get to lose. In the meditating with the body, there's this phrase, Tamalgi Nangshen, which is a Tibetan phrase for taking the sacred world as ordinary. Taking this world as ordinary. Thinking that this moment right now is somehow just dismissible, missing its sacredness. And what I've found is when we do these types of practices, these meditating with the body practices, when we touch this aliveness in us, this wildness, we actually recognize the sacred world. We recognize that just having the glance of someone who's with us, who's actually connecting with us, just a glance, is a huge blessing. Oh my God, Just a blessing to be able to connect eye to eye and feel another person's heart coming through. The quality of the air in the room, the quality of light or darkness. So when we touch that aliveness, we simultaneously touch not just the aliveness in our body, but the aliveness of life, the sea that we're in, the sacredness of it. And I don't know about you, but in a sense, that's always what I'm looking for. I'm always looking for that sense of the blessedness, the sacredness of the moment, whatever's happening. Okay, the third reason that I'm deeply interested in meditating with the body is that one of the things I've discovered in the process of working with these practices is that they accelerate, you could say, the flowering of our karma. And I want to explain what I mean by that. I mentioned at the beginning that if we meditate in a disembodied way as a floating head, we don't really change. Well, when we meditate with the whole feeling sense of our body, my experience is that actually meditation becomes a birthing process. It becomes like birthing. And what are we birthing? We're actually birthing ourselves. We're birthing the unfolding of our life. That actually in our bodies, what's held there is our unique expression in the world. Because, first of all, each one of us has this one body with this particular DNA, this particular ancestral heritage, genetic heritage. We're the only one that's had the kinds of experiences that we had when we were coming out of the womb and when we were a young child and throughout our life. And when we tune in and we let come to the surface everything that's actually going on with our bodies in this moment, what's birthed is the next step in our own evolution, the next expression of our individuality in the world. And my sense is that inside all of us are what we could call inner imperatives for our life. And they're unique to each of us. We each have our own inner imperatives, these things that just have to happen for the benefit of the whole through us. That's actually what we're doing here. There's something in us that has to happen. And of course we all want to know, what's my purpose? Why am I here? Well, it's actually in us, waiting to be tended to, tuned to, and then born out in the world. So it's a tremendous birthing process. And I think sometimes it might come with some of the trials. I'm not saying that anybody's necessarily going to be screaming in labor while the practices that we do, not quite like that, but it can sometimes have that quality of going through a process, and then there it is. There's new life, and we're surprised by it. And that new life's actually us. It's the next step in our life. So that's what I mean by accelerating the unfolding of our karma. And sometimes I think we can feel kind of stuck. Another word for stuck would be frozen. Things aren't moving. this is a process where we're going in, and in terms of the loss process, what we're losing more and more of that frozenness. We're thawing out. And in that thawing, then there's this sense of movement, fluidity, and the directionality that's actually in each of us. It's already there. We have this inner directionality. It's in us. Once again, it's interesting. We can often see it in other people. You know, you sit with somebody else and you can kind of see the whole thing. You kind of see, that's exact, see that? When we do these practices, it actually starts coming out in us. Not planned. A flowering. Okay. The fourth reason why I'm particularly interested in meditating and meditating with the body is that in this process we learn how to befriend ourselves. We're actually turning towards our experience instead of turning away from it. So, for example, in the experience of grief that I described, one way to work with that is to turn away because, it hurts. It hurts. Bruce Tift, who's a local Buddhist psychotherapist whose work I really like, talks about how sanity is a counter-instinctual process. And I thought that's a very brilliant statement, because the instinctual process is to go the other direction. Get me the F out of here, right? I mean, who wants to turn towards things that are painful? Even if there's this underlying aliveness underneath, well, I'll settle for some temporary relief instead. So here we're actually turning towards ourselves and befriending our experience. And there's another quote from Bruce that I really like. He writes, "Neurosis is always a substitute for experiential intensity." And he's taking a quote from Carl Jung. Neurosis is always a substitute for legitimate suffering. I don't know if you guys have ever heard that quote before. Neurosis is always a substitute for legitimate suffering. It's a really interesting quote. So instead of experiencing our suffering, whatever it might be, using my example of grief, we can bounce off of it. We're not actually with the somatic experience. Instead, we're bouncing off and we're becoming neurotic, and I'm talking to this person and that person about it and this and that and da-da-da-da. Meanwhile, the widow's hump is growing, but I'm, da-da-da-da. So our neurosis is a substitute for actually our legitimate suffering. This is real, this is legitimate. It hurts. It hurts to lose your closest friend. And the idea that our suffering often comes with this experiential intensity. So what we're doing in this is we're turning towards our experience, even when it's intense. We're welcoming it. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're turning towards. And it's a training. It's a training to learn to turn towards the intensity of our soma instead of going off into neurotic this and neurotic that. And we train on the cushion. We train in settings like this so that we can bring it into every moment of our life. We start becoming aware. We start noticing when in our day-to-day life, here we are, we're off on something. We know when we're being neurotic in some way or another. Do you know what I mean by that word? We're kind of clearly something that we don't really want to deal with. We'd rather talk to 50 people about it, even though we're just repeating ourselves at that point, and we don't even care if they're really what they say. We just want to hear ourselves. And that's a moment when we could say, what's actually happening right now in my body? What legitimate suffering or what experiential intensity? What's actually happening? This is time for me to turn towards myself, befriend what's actually happening right now at the felt level of my being. So that's what we're doing here, is that we're learning how to, quote unquote, take our seat. And what I mean by take our seat is be with our experiential intensity. Be with our experience. We can sit with it. We can stay with it. We don't have to bounce off. The primary way most of us bounce off is we start super thinking. So maybe something I'm saying is discomforting in some way, making you feel uncomfortable in some way. Well, a great way to kind of shut the whole thing down is you can become super judgmental or critical, or you go off and you start, criticizing yourself or criticizing other people. That's one of the best ways to just bounce out of what's actually happening in your body. And what's actually happening in your body could just be like a sense of unease. I feel a little uneasy. Just for the record, I feel a little uneasy. We have a camera. Some people I haven't seen in a long time. Some people here in the room who could be doing just as good a job giving this talk as I could, maybe better. I feel a little uneasy. Okay. Taking my seat. For the reasons that I described. So it's a training. And the more we train in it, in situations like this, the more we're able to do it in every moment in our life and watch our own particular patterns of recoil and of escape. It becomes really interesting when you start watching what you do to avoid being in your body, tuning to your body. One of the biggest things I do is I get on my iPhone. That's what I do. I'm an iPhone addict. So I pick it up and I check things and, okay, great. And it's interesting because it's a somewhat socially acceptable addiction because I'm, possibly getting something done that's useful. But really, I know what I'm doing. I'm sort of self-medicating myself because I can't handle the intensity of what's happening in my experience. And I actually think if we looked at all of our addictions, and it'd be interesting for you to observe what your quote-unquote addictions are, your addictive or compulsive behaviors, what are they? And when they come up, what's happening inside your body right at that moment? What's actually happening? I've started doing this with my iPhone, and it's such an incredible mirror to me. Such an incredible mirror. Reach for it and go, wait, just stop. What's actually happening right now? Oh, I feel anxious. Oh, that's interesting. I don't even know what I feel anxious about. I just feel anxious. Probably because of something that's happening in my iPhone, right? Maybe not. What if I just came back and said, what's happening in my belly right now? Where are my feet? what's happening in my heart? Could I return to the embodied immediacy of this moment? Could I take my seat with this experience? So in training to take our seat, we're going to work with 3, we could call them attitudes, somatic attitudes, somatic orientations. And these are identified in a book by Will Johnson called The Posture of Meditation. And it's one of the books that is one of the textbooks, you could say, of the Meditating with the Body program. We read it and study it and talk about it. And so these 3 somatic attitudes are relaxation, alignment, and resiliency. And very briefly, I'm going to talk about each. And then this evening, we're going to work on TGIF, relaxation. We're going to work with relaxation. And in many ways, I think relaxation is the place where most of us need to start. Remember, I talked about tension, and tension being this thing that we're doing so that we can avoid, defend, push away something or other that is either unwanted or that might destabilize our constructed sense. We don't want that constructed way that we identify as me to be destabilized, that wildness. So we tense against it, even though it's right here, volcanically so, for all of us. So can we relax the way we tense up? And can we learn to relax while we're actually sitting in meditation? That's interesting. Because often when people first start meditating, one of the first things they realize is how they're not relaxed at all. In fact, it's terrible. My back aches, this is tension. Why would I do something like this? And so part of what is so brilliant about the Meditating with the Body approach is that we learn how to be on the cushion and be profoundly relaxed at the same time. And that, I think, is one of the keys that changes how we meditate and makes meditation transformative. And tonight what we're going to do is we're going to explore relaxation in both the lying down posture and the sitting up posture. And a lot of the Meditating with the Body practices have this combination where we explore them both lying down and sitting up. And we'll talk more about that in a moment. But relaxation, the first principle. And one of the things I think you can see is that when we feel relaxed, there's also a sense of our mind starting to open. Maybe you've had that experience when you've received a deep massage, or you've been on a holiday on the beach and you've just let yourself crash on the beach for a while. And it's not just that your body relaxes, but that your mind falls open too, and how they go together. And if we could say that there's some type of, I'm not going to go so far as to call it a mathematical formula, but if there's some kind of equation we could look at in Meditating with the Body, we would say that tension and discursive thinking go together all the time. They go together. So that's another thing you can watch, is if you're finding yourself really being super discursive. And what I mean by that is going over the record player where you're thinking about the same thing, you've already thought about it 10 times. You are not having a new insight. That is for sure. You're going over. Then you can look and see what's going on in your body. And it's pretty guaranteed that there's some physical tension that is actually continuing to prop up the discursive thinking. And it's really interesting to watch that as we relax the physical tension in the body, the discursive thinking also melts away. Body-mind dropped is the Zen saying. So relaxation, a very, 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 very important part of taking our seat. Alignment has to do with exploring the central axis in the body. Directly in front of the spine, a sense of space, a central corridor that flows up through the body. And it actually starts way, 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 way deep down below us in the space of the earth, coming through the body and going all the way up. And we'll be working with establishing that central axis in our seated posture and learning to relax around it. So in taking our seat, we have the alignment of the central axis and this deep relaxation simultaneously. And that's what creates that quality of relaxed alertness or calm alertness. Because if we're just relaxed, often we can be kind of, we sort of slump down and we can be kind of semi out of it. But if we bring in the alignment with the relaxation, that's where we get this quality of presence and being and openness. And then the third somatic attitude that we bring to taking our seat is this quality of resiliency. And it's interesting, often if you watch somebody who seems like they're a beautiful meditator, they can sit for a long time, it might look like they're not moving, right? It's quote unquote stillness. They're not moving at all. But actually, one of the things I've discovered in my own sitting practice is the more that there's a sense that the whole body is a fluid field that's actually breathing, if you will, with each breath. Will Johnson talks about how Ida Rolf, the woman who founded Rolfing, who studied Rolfing, said that a breath, a real breath in the body actually reaches all the way up to the sutures at the top of the head, and the sutures at the top of the head actually open slightly with the breathing, and all the way down into the toes. And in the webbing of the toes, there's a sense of a breath. So that when you're sitting in a resilient way, there's actually that much very subtle kind of micro movement happening in the body with the natural breath. So it's actually not frozen at all. It's this alive, amoeba-like field. So we'll be exploring resiliency as well. But as I mentioned, I wanted to start tonight with TGIF relaxation, and also to encourage us to lose as much as possible while we're here together. And so we're going to go for maximum loss by beginning by lying down. And so I'm going to invite everybody to find a way that you lie down with your feet out of respect, not facing the shrine. And you can put your head on one corner of the cushion and your feet on the other. And if we could dim the lights a little bit, hopefully, somewhat, yeah. And to help everybody, since it sounds like we're not going to dim the lights as much as would be the ideal, you could place a scarf if you have it, or your jacket, or something over your eyes, just to increase a sense of letting go. And we're going to begin by putting our knees together in a triangle. So your feet are about hip width apart or a little greater, and your knees are up in a triangle. And I'm not sure, do we have yoga straps for people? And if you're interested, you can raise your hand and we'll bring you a yoga strap. And you can tie the yoga strap just above your knees. And by doing that, that can take some of the pressure off of your lower back. We're looking for the position that allows you to let go the most. Some people find it helpful to put a very thin pillow or something under their head. If you find that helpful, you can do that. And we'll put the left hand under the right at approximately the level of the belly button. And as you lie down, see if you can let yourself unwind, uncoil. You can feel your breath naturally rising under your hands in your belly. And there's a sense of giving in to the surface below. We're not needing to hold ourselves up in any way. You can just let the exhale carry out tension from the body. The exhale is a terrific transport mechanism. It's like we're allowing ourselves to become heavy, weighted, released. The practice we're going to do is a practice that's called the 10 points. And it's both one of the introductory practices, and it's also a deeply advanced practice in that in many ways it holds all of the body work in this one practice. It's all contained if we go deeply enough into it. And the 10 points are the bottom of both feet, and you can feel how the bottom of both feet are in contact with the surface. Points number 3 and 4 are the back of the buttocks, both the left and right. So to the left and right of the sacrum, there's also these points on the left and right that are in contact with the surface below. And it's through these 10 points that we're going to release our tension. These are the drainage valves, if you will, when we lie down like this, that we can release through. Then the 5th point of contact is at the mid-back. So if you pay attention to where the ribs come together, and there's a little piece of cartilage there called the xiphoid process. And if you go directly back to the back of the body, it's through that point at the mid-back that we can also release quite a bit of tension that's in the middle of the body and through our rib cage. And then points 6 and 7 are both shoulders. So you can feel how both the left and right shoulder are also in contact, and that you can drop through them. And then points 8 and 9 are the elbows. So the elbows are also in contact with the surface below, and you can let your elbows become heavier. And then the last of the 10 points is the back of the head. So what we're going to do in this practice is a 5-step process where we release through these 10 points of contact all of the tension we can identify throughout the entire physical body. And I'll tell you the 5 steps and then we'll begin. The first step is that we tune in. So we're going to tune in and bring our awareness to different parts of the body and cover the entirety of our body. And I'll guide you through it. So the first step is tuning in. The second step is, as we tune in, we identify the tension. So we connect with it, we contact it. And tension can really be any sense of holding, of coagulation, of an area that seems frozen, a sense of a knottedness, tightness of any kind, sense of constriction. So the second step, we identify tension. The third step is that we let go of that tension. We relax. We let it go. We drop it. We unwind. And then the fourth step is that we let go at an even deeper level. We let go, you could say, psychologically. We drop even deeper to see what might be the clutching. We let go even deeper. And then the final step is we're with what's there. Whatever's there in the space that opens up after we let go at the deepest level that we can. So we're going to begin the practice of the 10 points by bringing our awareness to our big toe on both the left and right side of the body. And so we tune in. We bring an intentional focus and we drop our awareness right into the big toe on both the left and the right side. And for some of you who are new to this, you may feel at first it's a little hard to contact your big toe. And if it helps, you can just wiggle it a little bit. And then drop your awareness right into the big toe. And as you do, move in to look, to see what's there. Any area that might be tense on the left side, the right side, the bottom, the top, where the toenail is. And really see if you can investigate with your awareness. Look into the toe. And then you can relax and see how deeply you can let go of whatever you might have identified in the big toe. So do this a few times, tuning in completely to the big toe. If it's helpful, you can imagine that you're bringing the secret breath into the big toe. There's the physical breath and the energetic quality of the breath, but then the secret breath, the aspect of awareness. So with the big toe, it's almost as though you're breathing, bringing in awareness as you imagine the breath coming into the toe. And then looking inside and releasing. Letting the toe become heavy. It's losing its sense of needing to pull back. And you may feel as you do this, your whole body start to sink a little bit more. Almost like it's melting as you exhale. As you tune in, see if you can actually tune in to all the cells that are in the big toes. You're actually tuning in microscopically like that. And then wholly and completely releasing. Letting the natural aliveness that's there surface. We'll move on now to the second toe. Again, if it helps, you can wiggle the toe just to feel it, and then bring your awareness into your second toe, the top, the sides, the bottom. See if you can get into the second toe. You can actually feel it on the inside. And if it's helpful, you can let the exhale help you release even more and drop any sense throughout the whole body that you're perching. We're not perching anymore. We're releasing and melting. Melting, melting, melting. We'll move on now to the middle toe. So we tune in, we look with the secret breath, with awareness itself. We look right into the middle toe. And then we release completely at the deepest level any sense of having the reins. We drop them. As you tune in, make sure you tune in to all parts of the toe. So you're getting inside, trying to tune in to all the cells that are in the middle toe, stirring them. Inviting them to let go and release. And then the fourth toe. Tuning in, looking, identifying any area of holding, frozenness, and then completely releasing. And then we'll work with the pinky toe on both the left and the right. How much can you let the pinky toe just melt any hardness or defense that it has? Just really let go. And then we'll breathe into all 5 toes and where the toes connect with the ball and the pad. And as we exhale, we can start releasing through the bottom of the feet. So we're letting go of any tension, just letting it melt out on the exhale through the bottom of the feet. So we're breathing in through the toes and then also where they connect. And then as we exhale, we drop and let go and let go and let go. So we'll breathe into the toes and then all the way into the ball and the pad. And then as we exhale, we let our feet become heavier and more sunk, letting these points of contact at the feet sink more and more, almost like they're making an indentation in the surface below. They're getting that heavy and dropped. So we'll continue with the toes, the ball, the pad, and we'll add in the archway now. So up into the arch.
And then we'll add in the heel, so we're breathing now into the toes, the ball, the pad, the arch, and the heel. So we're breathing into the totality of the bottom of the feet. And then letting everything go and the feet sink on the exhale. So explore this a bit. You can add in the sides, the circumference of the foot, as well as the top of the foot. So you're tuning in to the whole foot, both left and right, identifying any tension anywhere in the feet, and then seeing how much you can let go physically, psychologically. And then the final step is looking and seeing what's there after you let go. Being with that space. We're waking up the natural intelligence of our feet. As you do this, see how heavy you could let the feet become, such that if someone came and tried to move your feet, they couldn't. They're that planted. So make sure when you're tuning in to all of the cells in the feet. You can even see if the bones in the feet are holding tension. And just by bringing our awareness, just by bringing the secret breath into areas that might seem at first numb or we're unable to feel them, just by beginning the process, we're beginning to open the body up. So tuning in, including the top of the feet, the circumference, the toes, bones, the totality of both feet, and then deeply letting go. We'll continue now by tuning in and bringing our awareness to the ankles, both left and right, often an area where there can be some old injuries or tension. And as we release and let go of whatever we contact in the ankles, you can just let that drip out the feet and drip down. It's okay if you feel yourself getting a little sleepy. We're actually looking for that liminal place where you're so relaxed. It's almost on the edge of a kind of sleepiness, just exploring that edge. So continuing with the ankles, really tuning in to the front, both sides, left and right, as well as the back, and then getting inside, tuning in to the whole interior space of the ankles, the ankle bone. And then we'll continue by tuning in and bringing our awareness to the calf and the lower leg. So the shin, the back of the calf, the bone in the lower leg, and then letting everything go again out through the points of contact at the feet. When you tune in, go into the interior spaces of the body with awareness, with the secret breath. Going inside into all of the cells of the calf and the shin. And then when you release, letting the exhale help and transport tension out of the feet. Letting the feet be like a release valve. And then we'll work with the knees. So we breathe into both left and right knee. Again, an area where there can be injuries or quite a bit of holding. Sometimes we even avoid tuning in to our knees. So we're going to tune right in, look for tension, and then let go completely, using the point of contact at the feet to carry the tension. Let it drip out the bottom of the feet. So take some time now to work with this whole region, the knees, the lower legs, the ankles, and both feet, and see if there's a particular part of this region of the body that calls to you, that says, tune into me more, bring more secret breath to me. And then just work with that area and release as deeply as you can through the feet. You may notice as you do this that your breathing naturally wants to become deeper, more full, longer and slower in-breaths and more complete exhalations as you release the tension in the body. So you can just allow that naturally. So we're going to move on now and work with the 2 points of contact that are at the left and right side of the buttocks. And we're going to begin by breathing into our thighs and finding whatever tension there may be, tuning in to the inside of the thighs, the right side, the front, the back, all the way into the interior, to the bone, and then letting any tension go. Complete release through the left and right of the buttocks, using this as a release valve, these points of contact, the left and right of the buttocks, to let go of the tension in the thighs. So explore that. One way that you can explore tuning in, if it's helpful, is to imagine almost like you have a little flashlight, microscopic little flashlight that you take in as you're tuning in, looking all around inside the thighs. Any areas of frozenness, recoil, numbness, contraction. And then letting the left and right points of contact at the buttocks sink just like the feet. So there's a heaviness, sense of being planted. Continuing to bring the secret breath into the thighs, we'll now continue with where the thighs connect with the body, with the torso. And really see if you can give into gravity as you do this, the natural force that invites us to give it all up. Then we'll tune in to both the hip sockets, left and right. Also an area where there can be quite a lot of tension. So really get in there. Explore. You can use the inhale as your exploration. And then deeply letting go on the exhale. We'll tune in to the area around the anus and the genitals, giving ourselves permission, tuning in. We want all parts of us to reveal themselves, to give up what they know. And then we'll tune into the whole area of the belly, the full balloon of the belly, all the way on the inside to the left, the right, the pelvic floor, to the back. Letting any tension go. Letting the left and right side of the buttocks melt and sink. So spend a bit of time now exploring this whole region of the thighs and the hips and the belly region, this whole part of the body. See what calls to you. And see how much you can drop. Remember to let go at the deepest psychological level you can, at the mechanism that's holding ourselves back from this complete release. And then after you let go, be with the space that's there. Going to move on now to the point of contact that's at the mid-back. where the rib cage comes together directly below. And we're going to breathe in now to the whole area of the middle chest, under the rib cage, all the way up, moving up into the area of the heart. And then, as we let go, exhaling, complete release, we let that point at the mid-back drop and drop and drop and become heavy, just like our feet are, and the two sides of the buttocks heavy and released. So breathing in to the area under the rib cage, left and right, front and back. Getting into the interior of the body, really tuning in to all the cells of the interior space. And letting tension drip out and down out of the point of contact at the mid-back. If it's helpful, you can work with big, full inhalations that really give you a chance on the inhale. Tune deeply in, really looking that inner flashlight to the whole interior space. And then the complete exhale is a chance to really let go of tension at the deepest possible level. And you can use that space at the end of the exhale before you breathe in again to be with what's there. So try that a few times, working with the whole area, middle of the body, under the rib cage, up into the heart. We're going to continue releasing now through both shoulders. So letting the shoulders become heavy and dropped, releasing whatever burden, tuning in to the whole area, both left and right, upper chest, into the area of the shoulders. And then releasing and letting the shoulders drop as completely as possible. Make sure you're tuning in to the back area of the shoulders and the upper chest, as well as the front, bringing your awareness into this whole region. So we can feel how both feet are quite heavy and planted, both sides of the buttocks, the mid-back, and now both shoulders dropped and released. And we're going to move to the elbows, letting them sink. And we'll breathe into all 5 fingers in the hands. And any tension that we find in the fingers and the hands, the palm, as well as the back of the hand, just let that go and let your elbows be the release valves and let them sink even more. So we use the 5 steps, we tune in, we identify what's there, looking for any contraction, even subtle of any kind, even at the cellular level, sense of holding back. We let go physically, we let go of the constructed sense of self that's holding the tension, and then we're with the space. We'll continue and tune into the wrists, both left and right. As we let go, the elbows sink even more. And then the lower arms. Including any tension there might be in the bones of the hands and the wrists and the lower arms. And then the elbows themselves, breathing right in. Elbows getting heavier and heavier. Almost like they're immovable. They're so planted. And then the upper arms. Releasing any tension at the point of contact at the elbows. And now let's take this region of the body, the hands, the wrists, lower arms, elbows, and upper arms, and see if there's a part of the body that's calling you to release even more. And spend some time tuning in directly to that part, hands, lower arms, elbow, upper arms, and tune right to that area. You can bring in the secret breath directly there, and then let go even more. And if you want, you can let the exhale take the tension out of your body as your elbows become even heavier and more melted. So now we're going to tune in, starting at the feet, to the whole body all the way up to the level of the neck. And if you want, you can use your breath to help you. So you're breathing in and you're tuning in, scanning the whole body from the tips of the toes all the way up the legs and the torso, including the arms, up to the level of the neck. And then any tension you might find throughout any part of the body, we let it go on the exhale and we drop more through the points of contact, the release valves that we've identified. So there's a sense that you're tuning in and scanning as you inhale to the entirety of the body, from the feet all the way up to the neck. And see what's still asking to be released. And see if you can let go more. It's an undoing. And then we'll work with the final point of contact, which is the back of the head. So letting the back of the head be quite heavy, we tune in and bring secret breath. Bring the awareness into the whole area of the face. Often our face can hold a lot. It's like a mask that we wear. We can just let the mask melt back, and tension drips down out the back of the head. Breathing into the whole area of the neck and where the neck connects with the head. Letting any tension go that might be in our jaw. Letting our mouth flop open. Any tension in the bones of the face and the cranium. Can tune in specifically to the eyes and the eye sockets. There can be an incredible amount of strain in our eyes. Just let our eyes almost turn into liquid and melt. Sink back, letting the tension melt out through the back of the head. Tuning into any tension in the scalp, even in our hair follicles. Letting the head become unbelievably heavy. Tuning in to both ears and inside the ears. And then just work with the whole region of the head. See what part of the head might be calling you. And then let go even more at the point of contact at the back of the head. And let's take some whole body breaths now where we scan the totality of our body starting at the feet, and we work our way all the way up to the head, including the arms. And in this process, see what tension there still is in any part of the body. And then as you let go and exhale, nice full exhalations, see how much you can just let that drip back and down in a type of complete unraveling. So a couple more of these whole body breaths where we start at the feet and we work our way up, tuning into the entirety of the body. You can use a nice big inhale, which gives you plenty of time to scan the whole entire body, looking inside, identifying any part of the body that still could release even further. And then letting the exhale transport that release back and down through the points of contact, and then being with the space that's there after you let go. And then in Just a moment, we're going to find our way back to the seated posture. And as you do, see if you can really take your time and the level of dropping that you feel right now, the sense of your weight being held by the surface below you, the sense of release and melting. See if you can maintain that quality of heaviness and dropping as we slowly find our way to the seated position. And as you find your seat, see if you can let your sits bones be just as heavy and dropped as they were when we were lying down. And breathing quite naturally, tune into your body and see how different it perhaps feels from when we started our time together. After the 10 points practice, the level of dropping that's in the body, the sense of gravity, the sense of release throughout the whole body. And even just as we sit here briefly, see if you can continue to let go through the sits bones any tension that there might be in the body. So we can breathe in and see, is there any part of the body that feels tense? And then as we exhale, we just let that tension drip down out of our body through the sits bones. Tomorrow we're going to work quite a bit with the principle of alignment, but as we sit here right now, you can just very simply feel that the area where the sutures come together, there's like a string that's pulling at the back of your head, elongating your spine and pulling all the way up to the heavens above, straight on top of you, pulling that place towards the back of the head, pulling the back of the head up, the chin comes down, and everything relaxes around that central axis, and we drop any sense of holding through the sits bones. So our breath is relaxed and natural, our belly is released. We're not impeding the breath in any way. And there's just a sense of melting, 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 with tension dripping down and out the sits bones.
See with each exhale, as you let tension go, can you touch into that place of release that we felt lying down? Staying with your soma, with your felt sense right now. Tuning in, identifying anything that feels like it might be tensing up. And then as you exhale, drips out the sits bones. Your heavy, heavy Very good. It's a wonderful beginning. We'll explore much more tomorrow in the seated posture. And there'll also be a chance for people to ask questions about what we did tonight. For now, I'd like to close and also close with whoever may still be with us on the live stream of this, and simply ask that we dedicate the merit of our time together. And we can do that in a simple, very somatic way by just tuning in to our hearts right now and asking that whatever goodness may come from our work together here, from the letting go that we've done, that it may be of benefit and serve other people, and particularly areas of need, people in need. So in your own way, you can tune to your heart and dedicate the merit of our time together, and then I'll ring the bell in just a moment. look forward to seeing everyone tomorrow. Have a good night.